and we will go ahead and get started. On the agenda this week, I just wanted to point out, first of all, in the news from LibLime, I just made sure that the links to the documentation are correct here. And in the email that I sent out, I added in the most current date that these were updated. The Super Librarian Training Guide was updated June 26th, and the others were all updated on July 6th. So this updated as of May 9th, it's superseded. I didn't correct it online, but the dates that are on the email that I sent are correct. In the release notes, the newest version that is included in the release notes in terms of fixes is 5.19.19. So if you open the document itself and then do a search for the 5.19.19, you'll see the things that have been added since the last time you saw an update to this list. Basically, there were a couple of fixes that were done. There's been no new functionality that's been added. So I think if you have the release notes from the last time that I sent them out, you've probably got pretty much everything that has been added into the code. Okay, it is worthwhile going to the documentation as you begin testing in your sandboxes. There is a fair amount of new functionality that is there, and in some cases, the functionality that we've had for a long time is slightly different. The biggest piece, or the biggest one that I have noticed so far, we've talked about before, and that is the one where the lost handling is being changed. I have noticed that the public libraries are not quite fond of that new method of handling lost items. So I think that that's probably something that we will see changes in over the next few weeks. Okay, in terms of the 5.20 update, I did send out with the email announcement of the meeting a list of the problems that have been entered into the Code Fusion Support Center piece. And I'm providing this for a couple of reasons. I wanted to let you see at least what things are open or have been reported as bugs, plus also what the response was to the development requests. The reason that I wanted to do that is because for number one, the item that is being described is something that may clue you in on testing. You might want to test similar pieces like this and identify whether or not there are problems in what you have in your sandbox. And the other piece I wanted you to see is the response from the support team to the request. And if you took a few minutes to look through this list before the meeting, you know that there are a lot of things in here that say that they're in the development queue, but it's pretty far down on the priority list. So what I would like you to do as you read through this list is if there's anything in here that you think you would like to see escalated, that you'd let me know which ones they are so that I can add our information onto the support center ticket so that they'll know that it's a high priority for the Waldo libraries. On this list, I did not include anything that has been identified as closed. I'll keep an eye on those because they may be reopened at some point. But I figured that if they were closed, they were issues either that had been accepted by the libraries or were things that really were just questions that needed answers. As you look through this list, you'll notice that the subject line that is used sometimes doesn't appear to be very descriptive. and I debated on how much to add into this particular spreadsheet. And I decided, instead of trying to include all of the conversations that were related to the particular subject of that item, that I would just give you the subjects right now. If there's one that piques your curiosity and you would like to see more information about it, just send a message to the Waldo support mailing list, and I will go back in and I will copy out the conversation so that you can see everything that has been discussed back and forth about these particular problems. Some of them, as you go through the list, also you will see that there was something that was sponsored by South Central in the LibLime coding, or the LibLime Koha code, and they want those specs to be there. There are a couple of things that I wanted to point out on this list and see if there was any immediate reaction to them. Luckily, I went through and highlighted them so that I could find them quickly. This particular one is that they don't like the slider in the facets under the publication year. And I know that that is something that we had entered, I think it was University of Hartford had entered a problem report on for 5.20. And as you notice, they do say that they've already had a starting point. And I didn't go back and look at the support center story in the Waldo database, but I was wondering if there was, Ben, maybe if you were the one that sent the problem in on that, do you recall what the answer was for that particular one?
No, I'm afraid I don't remember what the answer was just yet. I'm not even sure if it got submitted formally through the support center, because it was a little early on for that. And I think you mentioned something about, you know, they were aware of it, but they had to put in some number for the beginning. So.
Right, and as I recall, that if either the email or the support story indicated that for any publication prior to 1920, it wasn't being picked up.
Oh.
Or something.
Yeah, there was another problem. Like we played around with it and tried to get it to actually limit the range, but at the time that we looked at it, it wasn't doing it, or wasn't doing it at all. I can't remember. And unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to play around with the sandbox much in the last couple of weeks, so we don't know how well it's working now.
Okay, so that's one that I just would like everyone to take a special look at, to see how you like the slider, first of all, and second, if you would like us to recommend to go back to the list that normally would appear in that particular facet. That's probably the only other option that we have, other than going with decades. So yeah, I would really appreciate input on this one.
Yeah, it might be problematic because some bib records don't really have dates, and sometimes the dates are set to 9,999.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it all depends on what piece of information they're going to in the bib record and the mark record in order to find the date. And even if it's the fixed field or the 260 or 264, that can still be a problem because there can be multiple dates in the 260 or 264, and also multiple dates in the fixed field. So I don't think that there's a perfect solution to this particular one. So we'll see what happens. If anyone has an idea on how it would be a more perfect solution, send your idea to the support list, because I can add it to the ticket and at least get our input in on that particular one. Okay, the next one that I highlighted was one that people who are in libraries with music collections, which I know are a lot of you, is that in South Central, they had I need to open something here to show you. They had some special instructions, some special, or an enhancement request whereby they identified what they wanted in the what they wanted to see in the, hold on, I'm trying to look and talk at the same time, and that doesn't seem to be working for me. Okay. Okay, in South Central and in the libraries that are using the LLK format, or the LLK software at the present time, this is what their format dropdown looks like. And in ours, or I shouldn't say ours, but in Bibliovation, or as we know it, LAK, this is what the format dropdown looks like. Now, remember, this is in the facet list, and it's only that one portion of it. And they have another, no, that's, and this is what they are seeing in their version of in their sandbox. What the ticket is all about in this particular case is, is that they want to have their special code in there, which is the, let me see, which is this version. Now, this particular format in the facets right now for all of our libraries are pulled from the fixed field elements from the 006 and the 008, and it displays according to what the formats are in the MARC format. It doesn't necessarily display it like this. This is what they wanted to have displayed based on some things, and this is what they also have displayed on their advanced search page for the limits for the subtypes. If you recall what those look like, let me pull up an advanced search page over here. Okay, so in the advanced search page, the subtypes, there is the any audience, there's any content, and the any format. And in format, we have our print, cartographic, audio, video, computing, visual. So what they want is to have their drop down that appears, and I am thinking that the Waldo libraries probably don't want to go with that particular display because it has terminology that you're probably not using in your libraries. And I guess what I would like to find out is what you are interested or what you want.
Becky, I'm a little confused. Do they want to? They don't like the way that it's that it appears on the advanced search page or in the pre-filter search, which is that second drop down for the top search bar.
Let me show you the.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, I forgot the number, 55879. Okay, so this is what they're saying here. And the examples that are here are the ones that I just showed you. And what Jane says in this one is that they aren't being pulled from the indexes rather than the fixed field. That's what they had done in LLK, is that they had a special coding in there where they identified them in the format area itself. So in the zebra indexing, the format was a specific attribute that was used in the index creation. But in LAK, it's not using the indexes for this, it's using the mark tags themselves. So that's basically what they want. There is a difference in the way that LLK did the drop downs, the facet drop downs, from what the LAK method of using it. LAK is using the mark format, and they had these identified specifically. I can understand in a public library way, in the public library world, where they would really want to see terms that their public are more likely to use than what the mark format tells them. So it's something that's kind of, this is an area where I think we need to all have our say into how these are formatted and looking. And Jen, I agree with you that there is not a way to identify. It's having a problem. What I discovered when I searched in Hartford, I searched for Mozart because I figured there would be a lot of hits on that. And in that, it'll be easier to show. Okay, when you look at this, we have scores and audio CDs, but we don't have the printed music. What I discovered on this is if I choose the books format, which is counterintuitive for any of your students, we then have it broken down a little bit more so that we have that a more precise look at the formats. Now, in the display that Hartford has here, we can tell that it's a format, and that it's a type of book, and that the format is print, but that's not coming through into the audio. Yeah, and let me go back one screen. And there was the scores option with 1094. Okay, so that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I knew that there was more that was being done and that it wasn't necessarily the way that you wanted it to be. So what I would hope is that I can let them know through the support center that there are other issues that we would like to see addressed in terms of this as well. Well, there are, The MARC format is actually the limiter here, because in the MARC format, in the leader, you identify the kind of material, and then in the 006, 007, and 008, you provide other pieces in various codes in those fields that would identify things. If we had a way, or if we had a list, I should say, of how we wanted the leader, the 006, the 007, if applicable, and the 008, if applicable, if we had a map of what we wanted pulled from each of those for the facets, we might be able to come to some agreement on what needed to be identified there. I think that would make creation of the format a little bit more difficult in terms of programming, but I think that the results would be worth it, because you would be able to better identify to your users what you mean in your facets. A format is a kind of, as a library patron, I'm not certain I would identify a format in the terms that the MARC format uses. I know that the University of Hartford has done a lot of work into the MARC format and how it all goes together in terms of the formats, and they have done quite a bit of work. So I'm wondering if maybe we should get the information from them and submit it as another alternative, and possibly with ideas on how we would want it to be improved. Are there people who would like to help with that? Thank you, Ben. After I read Tracy's note and then yours, I'm going, are there any other libraries that would like to help along with this, or at least who would like to review what is being put together? Okay, I'll post a message to the Waldo support list about the same thing, and hopefully I can be a little clearer on what I would like us to do, because I think that we need to make sure that whatever is showing up here is not something that we're going to have to keep modifying either in the DL configuration or have special code for each individual site for the facets, because I think that would be really difficult for us to keep track of from version to version. Okay, let me go back to the list again. And as I said, like line 30 photo, do you in your libraries try to add photos to your patron records? Okay, that's what I suspected. So as I went through here, I was trying to identify in my head, at least, which issues that are important to the public libraries is not as important to the academic libraries. And I think that if you find something that you really don't care about, I'd like to know that too. As long as it doesn't interfere with any of the functionality, is something that I would definitely want to make sure that we don't say, no, don't do it just because we are being picky about something. There are some issues that I ran across as I went through the support center and looked at these, is that there are some pieces like this one about the holdings data is not properly parsed out from the serials module. The integration with the serials module and the MARC record is almost non-existent. So expecting this to happen correctly is probably not a good thing for someone to do. But the integration of the one above it, the full 245 and 246 search, it goes against different tables, or those searches within serials go against different tables than a search in the catalog does. And I think that that's one of the issues that is difficult for people to grasp initially when they're working with LAK, or as the public libraries are calling it, bibliovation all the time, is that searching isn't always searching the same indexes that you would assume that you're searching. And that's something I think that LibLime is going to have to face up to at some point in time, that when we're searching, we want to search the same data that we search all the time. I mean, that we search in the catalog, not just what's in a specific module. So somehow the searching needs to be more integrated amongst the different modules that exist. Okay, so that's pretty much all that I want to say about this right now. There was a Code Fusion meeting the first Thursday in July, I believe it was, and I unfortunately signed in late, so I didn't hear everything that was being discussed. There was, however, one person that actually made it to it, and Ben, I think you were there for the entire meeting. Was there anything that was important that was brought up that you can remember?
That I can recall, not really. A lot of what you missed was libraries, mostly South Central, sharing things that they had reported, things that they were seeing in 520 that they weren't thrilled with. Also, South Central is really concerned that the stuff that they submitted as enhancement requests weren't yet being filled. So a lot of what they wanted to do as far as testing and also reporting things was kind of hampered by not having all the stuff that they had asked for in place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I actually foresaw that when this whole project started, because they didn't have a list of the features that they had sponsored anywhere.
Oh.
And if they weren't willing, if they didn't have that already available to track, they should have pulled it together at the beginning rather than towards the end. As you see when you go through that spreadsheet, you'll see that there are many places where they refer to specifications that they had done before. So there will be things that will be added in based on what they had before, but not sure how far LibLime is going to go to make sure everything is added in. I think LibLime is trying to look at this more as a single solution, not a solution that is no, Yasmin, you should be seeing all of the facets. I did notice that there were a couple of bugs that were identified from the public libraries. There is one piece of the facets that I think I should probably try and find. I'll send it out, but in the format, I'm sorry, in the publisher year drop down, if that's one of the ones that you are not seeing, it's because, let me do another search here. One of the bugs that was found a while back was that the publisher names were being truncated to a single word. And in some cases, I think it depends on what is in the bibliographic record. But there is a change to the setup for the facet displays, and that is in a system preference. Called search facets, and let me bring this up and edit it. The particular one that I know for certain are publisher display. So publisher hyphen display, publisher pub needs to be there. The index itself is changed names, and that's one that you need to be aware of. That I think it's in the documentation, but my initial thought on this is that you wouldn't probably think to go to the documentation to look for this because it's something that we've had before. If your search facet preference isn't set up this way, that's probably why you don't see it. And you're not seeing the facets for those. I'll do some checking into what you've got, what I see there, and see what I can figure out, because that is something that you should be seeing the details. Okay, let me go back to the agenda. I have asked Jane, and I haven't heard back from her yet, how they want to have sandbox problems reported. The sandbox problems, I think I told someone to just go ahead and put them in the regular support center, but after looking through the Code Fusion or support center box, I'm wondering if they might not want them in there. So once I find that out, I will let you know by sending a message to the Waldo support mailing list. And I added, or I kept the enhancement list update from our last meeting on here, just as a reminder about which enhancements are being, were ordered and are going to be worked on. Let me put that back. And of course, the recordings are now on YouTube with the links all identified here. So if you missed any of these meetings and want to find out what we talked about during those, you can just click on any of these links and it will open up the YouTube session. Okay. Are there other issues, if you've had a chance to look at the sandbox, that you would like to talk about right now before we close our meeting for today? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Julia, I'm not certain. I'd have to look at the source of the page to find out for sure. I know that they try to keep up with the most current version of Bootstrap. I'll see if I'll ask and see if I can. I'll see first if I can figure it out from looking at a page source, and if I can't, I'll ask them to find out. Other questions, other comments? There is one other issue that I'd like to point out that I forgot to highlight. This is something that has been annoying for almost everyone, and that is when you are working in the cataloging editor, if you want to add an authorized field into a new bib record or into or whatever, you have to go to the authority file in order to choose a selection or add a record in the authority file. And that is one of the issues that that South Central is not very happy about. And in fact, that is one of the enhancements that they want to have done as soon as possible. They have written a document about it, and I think I will share that with you all so that the catalogers can take a look at it and see what they think about it. That's one that I think whenever it impacts how the system works for everybody, where I think we all need to take a look at it and see what the issues are. So watch for email messages from Emaldo support over the next day or so. And we will definitely keep talking about this at our next meeting. That's all that I have for today. If there are no more questions, and have a great day. Thank you all.